Hello and welcome to IAMC Radio and Podcast. Today we're exploring the top news headlines for February 25th, 2025. Let's start with international news. There's a concerning situation developing in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Right.
A mysterious illness has already claimed over 50 lives.
Yeah, and what's really concerning is that there are over 943 cases reported.
Wow.
Since February 9th.
So just a couple weeks.
Yeah, with symptoms like fever and chills, headaches and joint pain.
Oh, wow.
It's resulted in a 5.5% mortality rate.
That is concerning. And I know they've been doing some testing.
Right.
A lot of those affected did test positive for malaria, but the exact cause of this outbreak is still under investigation.
It is, but thankfully Ebola has been ruled out.
That's good news. Okay, shifting focus now to Afghanistan.
Okay.
We have a story about a British couple in their 70s.
Oh, wow.
Peter and Barbie Reynolds. They've been detained by the Taliban since February 1st.
Really?
Yes, and the Reynolds have dedicated 18 years to running educational programs in Afghanistan.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is, but their arrest seems to be connected to their teaching of parenting skills to mothers.
I see. Yeah, that's tricky.
It is a sensitive situation, given the Taliban's interpretation of Islamic law.
Right.
It places very strict restrictions on women.
Yeah.
Their daughter has been pleading with UK authorities for their release.
Of course.
You know, her parents are elderly,
Yeah.
and one requires heart medication.
Oh, wow.
It's definitely a difficult situation.
It is, and it really kind of underscores the complexities faced by those who chose to stay in Afghanistan
Right.
after the Taliban's takeover in 2021.
Exactly. And now for a really heart-wrenching story.
Oh, no.
We turn to Paris, an American student, only 18 years old,
Wow.
tragically threw her newborn baby from a second-story hotel window.
Oh, my goodness.
The infant was still attached to the umbilical cord and did not survive despite receiving emergency care.
I see.
French authorities have launched a murder investigation, and the mother is currently in custody.
It's just a deeply tragic event, and it'll be interesting to see how the investigation unfolds.
It is. Okay, moving on. We have a story that sheds light on Canada's immigration policies and the challenges faced by asylum seekers. Well Akinpelu, a retired Nigerian policeman, and his wife, Ajarat Musharola, had their asylum application rejected by Canadian authorities. They sought asylum back in 2018, but their application was denied.
Why?
Well, it was due to Mr. Akinpelu's previous employment with the Nigerian police force, an institution known for its history of corruption and human rights violations.
Right.
A couple claims that they fled Nigeria in 2017 due to threats from a criminal gang.
I see.
However, a Canadian court upheld the rejection, citing concerns about Mr. Akinpelu's potential involvement in human rights abuses.
Wow.
Now let's turn to some U.S. news.
Okay.
A Delta Airlines flight en route from Atlanta to Columbia, South Carolina, experienced a rather tense situation when a mysterious haze filled the cabin shortly after takeoff.
Oh, wow.
The pilots had to make an emergency landing back in Atlanta.
Oh.
This incident comes just a week after another Delta plane crash landed in Toronto.
Really?
Yeah,
That's scary.
it is, and it's raising questions about the airline's safety record.
Definitely makes you think.
It does. Video footage from inside the aircraft captured that unsettling smoky haze, adding to the passengers' anxiety, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But thankfully, all 94 passengers and crew members were safely evacuated using the emergency slides.
That's a relief.
It is. In other U.S. news, the Trump administration has released its 2025 visa waiver program list.
Okay.
And the absence of any African countries is raising eyebrows.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Even close U.S. allies like the UK didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This decision is particularly impactful for Nigerians, who are already facing tightened visa restrictions
Right.
and increased deportation rates under the Trump administration.
It's very much in line with President Trump's stance on immigration.
It is.
You know, focusing on strict border control and reduced entry for African and Latin American nations.
Right, now let's turn our attention to some news from Nigeria.
Okay.
Tragically, two major markets in Lagos, Ladipo and Obodo-Onorin, were ravaged by fire in the early hours of the morning,
Oh my goodness.
resulting in millions of naira worth of damage.
Wow.
Fire broke out around 1 a.m., engulfing shops and warehouses, filled with goods like mechanical tools, vehicle spare parts, motorcycles, household appliances.
Oh wow, a lot of damage.
A lot of damage. Firefighters bravely battled the blaze for hours, finally containing it by 6 a.m. devastating loss for many traders.
It is.
But thankfully, no casualties were reported.
That is good news.
It is. And finally, in Edo State, there's a growing sense of unease as the head of a local security network, Ogudigbe Victor, was found dead with machete wounds.
Oh, no.
This tragic incident has sparked fear among residents, leading many to flee their homes.
Wow.
Suspicion has fallen on armed herders who are believed to be responsible for the killing. And this, sadly, is not an isolated incident. Just days ago, 2 other residents were killed in a nearby community. And there's a growing sense that this violence is part of a larger pattern of attacks and destruction of farm crops in the area.
You know, that situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, it's really a stark reminder of the challenges we face in a world, where new and unknown pathogens can emerge at any time.
Absolutely. And the fact that this is all happening in a region with very limited access to healthcare makes it even more concerning.
Absolutely. The lack of resources and infrastructure, can significantly hamper efforts to contain the spread of the disease and also provide adequate treatment.
For sure. Okay, well, let's turn our attention now to the situation in Afghanistan.
Okay.
It's clear that the detention of this British couple raises serious concerns about the Taliban's commitment to human rights.
Yeah, it definitely suggests a disconnect between the Taliban's ideology and international norms.
Right, and it's especially troubling considering the couple's age and their health conditions. It just adds another layer of urgency to their daughter's pleas for their release.
It really does, and it kind of underscores the challenges of engaging with regimes that hold such different values and the need for that delicate balancing act, advocating for human rights while navigating complex geopolitical realities.
Exactly. Well, the tragic incident in Paris involving the American student and her newborn baby.
Right.
It's just a stark reminder of the silent struggles that so many individuals face, especially young people dealing with unplanned pregnancies.
Yeah, the immense pressure and lack of support systems can lead to very desperate actions.
It's true, and it highlights the critical need for, mental health services and just compassionate resources for those in crisis.
Absolutely.
It's a heartbreaking reminder that behind the headlines, there are often, deeply personal stories of pain, fear, and isolation.
That's right.
Okay, well, the Canadian government's decision to deny asylum to the Nigerian couple raises some very complex questions about how countries balance individual rights with concerns about national security.
That's a tough one.
It is, weighing the potential risk posed by someone with ties to a corrupt institution against the humanitarian obligation to offer refuge to those fleeing persecution.
Right. It's a difficult dilemma.
It is. And in this case, the Canadian court ultimately prioritized the concerns about potential human rights abuses committed by the former policeman.
Right.
But it does highlight the challenges faced by asylum seekers.
Yes.
From countries with troubled histories.
It does. And it really underscores the need for transparency and fairness in these asylum processes. Ensuring that decisions are made on a case-by-case basis while also upholding human rights and national security interests.
Okay, well, let's talk about the 2 Delta Airlines incidents that occurred within a week of each other.
Scary stuff.
It is. The emergency landing in Atlanta and the crash landing in Toronto, they raise serious concerns about potential systemic issues within the airline.
Yeah, they do, because while it is reassuring that there are no fatalities in either of these incidents, the frequency of these events is pretty alarming.
It is.
And it definitely demands a thorough investigation into the airline's safety protocols.
For sure. Well, the Trump administration's decision to exclude all African countries from the visa waiver program has really sparked a lot of debate.
It has.
With many viewing it as a discriminatory policy that reinforces existing inequalities.
This decision, it's very much in line with the administration's America First agenda and the focus on restricting immigration, particularly from certain regions.
Right. And critics argue that this policy unfairly targets African nations and sends a message of exclusion, potentially damaging diplomatic relations and hindering economic opportunities.
Yeah, it does raise questions about the criteria used to determine the eligibility for the program and whether those criteria are applied consistently and fairly across all different countries.
Absolutely. Well, turning our attention back to Nigeria.
Okay.
The devastating fire that ravaged those 2 major markets in Lagos.
Yes.
It's a stark reminder of the vulnerability of urban communities to disasters, both natural and man-made.
Yeah, and the economic impact of that fire is just immense.
It is.
It leaves countless traders struggling to rebuild their livelihoods.
It really does. And it also highlights the need for improved fire safety regulations and infrastructure, particularly in those densely populated areas.
Right, exactly.
Where the risk of such incidents is heightened.
Absolutely. This tragedy really underscores the importance of proactive measures like fire prevention education, regular inspections, and just adequate firefighting resources to help mitigate the impact of such events.
Absolutely. Well, finally, the killing of the vigilante leader in Edo State sheds light on the escalating security challenges in parts of Nigeria, where these armed herders are increasingly implicated in violence and attacks.
Yeah, it points to a growing climate of fear and insecurity among residents.
It does.
Many of whom are fleeing their homes looking for safety.
And it's clear that the Nigerian government needs to take decisive action to address this crisis, ensure the safety of its citizens, and implement strategies to promote peace and stability in the affected regions.
Yeah, I think a multifaceted approach is needed.
Okay.
One that addresses the root causes of the conflict, like those land disputes and resource scarcity.
Yes.
While also strengthening law enforcement and promoting dialogue between these communities.
So as we wrap up our look at today's top news headlines, it's clear we live in a really complex world.
It is, yeah, from the health crisis in DRC to, the politics surrounding the visa waiver program.
Yeah.
These stories really highlight how interconnected everything is.
Right.
And the challenges we face in this rapidly changing world.
And one thing that keeps coming up is the resilience of people in the face of adversity.
Absolutely.
I mean, the firefighters in Lagos, the daughter fighting for her parents in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We see people showing incredible courage.
It's inspiring.
It is.
It really is.
But we also have to acknowledge the tough stuff.
Yeah.
The tragedy in Paris, the asylum case in Canada, and the violence in Nigeria.
Right.
It shows we need change, real change.
Yeah, we need to fix the root causes of things like conflict and inequality.
And it's easy to feel overwhelmed.
Sadly.
But we each have a part to play.
That's right.
Staying informed, talking about these issues, holding our leaders accountable, that's how we make a difference.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest takeaway today is just how connected we all are.
Yeah.
What happens in one place affects everyone.
It does.
And that should make us more aware, more compassionate.
For sure.
Our choices matter. They can make a positive impact.
They do.
Thank you for listening to today's top news headlines on IAMC Radio and Podcast.